So example 125, we have an 8-measure excerpt from a string quartet. Be prepared that third step down is going to be C clef for the viola. We are in the key of B flat major, so I've written out my B flat major scale. And above, we are clearly initiating in B flat and cadencing in B flat. However, there are a number of accidentals. For example, F sharp. In 2 instances, F sharp moves up to G, F sharp to G. So I have written, going to G, the string of 5 letters with the dominant function chords that resolve to G. Downbeat of measure 7, there's an E natural moving to F. E natural is the leading tone to F. F is the dominant, so C, E, G, B flat, D flat is the string of 5 letters that resolve to the dominant F. Let's begin labeling the key, B flat. The downbeat omits a bass note from the cello, and the B flat enters on beat 2. So to start with, we start with F, D, and B flat. I am not going to write 1, 6, 4. The cello comes in right afterwards on beat 2, and so we just put a 1 chord there. Measure 1, beat 3, C, F, E flat, and A, C, F, E flat, and A. Rotate this around, F, A, C, E flat, that is the dominant. 7, with C in the bass, that makes it a 5, 4, 3. Downbeat of measure 2, D, F, F, B flat. So it's a tonic chord, D in the bass makes it a first inversion. Measure 2, beat 2, C, A, E flat, and C. Well, A, C, E flat is the leading tone triad, and with C in the bass, that makes it first inversion. And at the end of measure 2, beat 3, B flat, D, D, B flat. We're back to a 1 chord. So in measures 1 and 2, we have a tonic prolongation. The 5, 4, 3 and the 7 diminished 6 are passing chords. Notice that their bass note, C in both cases, are passing. B flat, C, D, C, B flat. So measures 1 and 2 are a tonic prolongation. Notice that in the first violin steps down to the leading tone, steps up to D, the third, and then at the very end of the measure returns to B flat. So B flat is sustained in the first violin. Similarly, D is sustained in the second violin. The viola does ascend from F up to B flat. The bass, the cello, sustains B flat, or prolongs B flat. So there is very much an affirmation through the individual lines that measures 1 and 2 are a tonic prolongation. Measure 3 arrives on 5 chord, but in first inversion, A, C, C, F. So 5, 6, first inversion. I'm having to scrunch things because there's just not a whole lot of horizontal space to write the Roman numeral analysis. Notice that the downbeat first inversion quickly moves on beat 2 to be root position. So instead of rewriting the Roman numeral, a shorthand that I've seen is to show 6 and then 8 to show that the first inversion chord, the 6th between the bass and the highest pitch, moves to form an octave. So 6, 8. End of measure 3 introduces the first of 3 sforzandi that occur on the anacrusis of 3 consecutive measures. A, C, E flat, G. A, C, E flat, and G. Well, A, C, E flat is the leading tone triad. We add the major third, and this makes it a half diminished 7 quality. Often when I come across half diminished and fully diminished qualities, I will simply put what we would normally put as superscripts to the Roman numeral until I verify how that sonority is going to resolve. In this case, A, C, E flat, G, which is the diatonic half diminished 7 chord for the key of B flat, indeed resolves to B flat, D, D, and F. So it resolves to a 1. So this was the diatonic half diminished 7. Notice that when the 1 arrives, it arrives in root position, and B2 moves to first inversion. So I'm going to use the reverse of our 6/8 to show root position moving to first inversion. Now, technically there's not a B flat above this B flat. There isn't an octave above it. This is just a shorthand to show I'm moving from a root position to a first inversion triad. The sforzando at the end of measure 7, F sharp, A, C, E flat, F sharp, A, C, E flat. Well, that I expect to resolve to a G minor chord. But until I know for certain that it is indeed the fully diminished 7 going out to G minor, I'm going to only annotate that it's a fully diminished 7 chord. Now, downbeat of measure 5. Do I hear the expected G minor triad? G, B flat, D. And indeed, we get G minor, which is our 6 in the key of B flat. So the F sharp, A, C, E flat was the fully diminished 7 of 6. Another aspect to notice here, the 16th notes at the very end of the measure are anticipations. It occurred going into measure 4. The D and the F were anticipations to participate in the tonic chord that arrives on measure 4, and similarly the D and the B flat at the end of measure 4 anticipate the arrival of the G, B flat, D at the downbeat of measure 5. So some nice anticipations. The G minor chord arrives first of all in root position and then moves into first inversion. The third sforzando, D, F, A flat, and C. D, F, A flat, and C. D, F, A flat is a diminished triad. A flat to C is a major third, so this is the half diminished 7. It's not the half diminished 7 in the key of B flat. That was A, C, E flat, G. If D, F, A flat, C resolves as a half diminished 7 to a major triad, I expect it to go to E flat. E flat is the subdominant in the key of B flat. Downbeat of measure 6, E flat, B flat, G, B flat. There's the 4 chord. So this D, F, A flat, C is the 7 half diminished 7 of 4. There's the arrow showing that the half diminished 7 chord is resolving to the 4. Moving on, F in the bass. Well, I've just heard the predominant or the subdominant 4. So F in the bass, F is scale degree 5. I'm expecting now a 5 chord. F, D, F, B flat. This is our 5, but it's in 6/4 inversion. I'm not putting a Roman numeral there yet, just in case, but I know not to put a cadential, a tonic 6/4. I know not to label it tonic 6/4. We've discussed that in previous analyses. The F goes on to F sharp. Oh, F sharp, C, A natural, E flat. That was the fully diminished 7 of 6. So I'm just going to start by putting fully diminished 7. Moving on to measure 7, F sharp to G. Yes, I'm looking for G, B flat, D. G, E natural. D flat, B flat. G, E natural, D flat, B flat. This is not G, B flat, D. If I spell this or respell it as a stack of thirds, E, G, B flat, D flat. That is the fully diminished 7 of 5. C, E, G, B flat, D flat, E, G, B flat, D flat. This is the fully diminished of 5. So fully diminished 7 of 5. And for right now, because I don't know where the real 5 came in, I'm going to annotate that as the fully diminished 7 of 5. And remember that I'm stacking things up rather than writing things out because I don't have a whole lot of linear space on the page. Beat 2, measure 7. F, there's the 5 chord. F, F, D, and B flat. So this is the return of the 6-4 that first entered on beat 2 of measure 6. So these beat 2s of measure 6 and 7 state the same harmony with fully diminished 7th chords in between. Beat 3, I'm looking for a real root position 5-7 chord now, or 5 chord. F, F, C, E flat, the third A comes in on the last 16th note. So here's my real 5-7. E flat moves down to C, meanwhile the F steps down to E flat. So we have E flat covered for the 7th covered for the whole measure, the whole beat, and then we get everybody at the same time coming into one chord, B flat, D, B flat, B flat, for our perfect authentic cadence in the key of B flat. So what about measure 6 and 7? The dominant starts on beat 2 of measure 6 when we get a cadential 6-4. It could very well have moved cadential 6-4 over to a 5-7 and given us 1, and then we would only have a 7 measure phrase. You know the norms of phrases are 4 measures, 8 measures. We tend to work in multiples of 4. So the dominant is expanded, ornamented, before finally arriving on a root position 5-7 and moving into the perfect authentic cadence arrival on tonic. This fully diminished 7, let me talk about the one first on the downbeat of measure 7. The downbeat of measure 7 was indeed the fully diminished 7 of 5. Remember that fully diminished 7th chords can resolve, first of all, to the ornamented cadential 6-4 before they resolve to the root position 5 or 5-7. So that one's fine. This is the one that's a little bit difficult to explain. It's almost like a passing fully diminished 7 chord, because F sharp is a passing note up to this G. This G is functional around the 5 chords. So highly ornamented 5 chord within the cadential progression at the end of measure 8. Next to talk about in this excerpt is the sequence. We have tonic prolongation, we have a highly ornamented dominant in the cadential progression, and then we have a sequential progression in which the sequence descends by thirds. And it is in this middle section with the 3 sforzandi. We have an arrival on 1, in the downbeat of measure 4, arrival on 6, downbeat of measure 5, arrival on 4, downbeat of measure 6. So the motion from 1 to 6 to 4. 1 to 6 is down by third, 6 to 4 is down by third. And each chord was preceded by a 7-7 harmony. Another way of hearing this is to recognize that the pickup to measure 4 over to expand 3 beats total, 3, 1, 2, is repeated. That's the sequence. And the third sequence begins similarly, but then moves in a different direction. Some people would recognize that structure of an initial statement, sequence, sequence, in which that third statement is different. Starts the same, but then differs. This is a this, that. This is not an official term. I learned this from a colleague at UT Austin, Doug Green. He wrote one of the standard books on form. He passed away fall of '99. Fantastic music theorist. He is the one that turned me on to this phrase of this, that. And I've really not seen any official term for that. But certainly if you go back and listen to that, you'll hear, oh, first statement, sequence that then is not exactly the same, but starts the same. And one other structure to look at in measure 2, the D in the bass supporting the 1/6 ends up in the soprano. The soprano B flat on the downbeat of measure 2 ends up in the bass. And that is what we call a voice exchange. In this case, the voice exchange was between the first violin and the cello, between the outer voices. Very common that a voice exchange occurs anytime a 7 diminished 6 connects a root position or first inversion, whether you're moving from the first inversion to the root position or vice versa. A voice exchange will go along with a prolongation of the harmony that begins and ends the voice exchange. So the fact that this is a tonic prolongation and we find a voice exchange within it is no big surprise there. So ornamented dominant in our cadence, a sequential progression that descended by thirds. Another way of hearing that is this, that, and within our tonic prolongation, a voice exchange. This is quite a rich example.